Welcome to 1 Million Cups. Please grab a seat. We got a lot of seats up front. My name is Brian Azorski. I'm one of the community organizers. With me, I've got Melissa Roberts, Milton Jeffrey, Lance Windles, and Courtney Chapman. I knew I was going to be slow on those. Hey, welcome to 1 Million Cups. Who's here for the first time? Raise your hand. Welcome. Great to have you. And I love to see the regulars raise their hand too, because I know there's a great group of regulars that come. So thank you for joining us. We've got a great presentation for you today. If you don't know about 1 Million Cups, we are a weekly educational program. Every week we bring two entrepreneurs to you to share their entrepreneurial journey, and we do a 6-minute presentation, and then we do some Q&A, and there'll be a few of us running mics around. So during the Q&A time, raise your hand if you have a question. We'll identify, acknowledge you, and we'll come stand next to you when it's your turn to do a question. And we're going to go ahead and get started. I'd like to welcome Steve Strong from SD Strong Distillery. He's somewhat new in town, and he's got a great product and a great story. Come on out, Steve. Thank you.
Thanks, Brian. Well, thanks for being here this morning. I'm really excited to be here doing this at 1 Million Cups. What a great organization. They are offering entrepreneurs, well, really everywhere now, just a great opportunity to be in front of people. So thank you so much. I really appreciate it. So as Brian said, I'm Steve Strong with SD Strong Distilling, and what we are is a boutique distillery in Parkville, Missouri. And if you don't know where Parkville is, we're about just on the northwest corner of Kansas City, and it's just a small river town. And the distilleries actually were located in a cave 65 feet below Park University up there. And a lot of people think I'm like digging in the dirt, but this is actually what the cave looks like. A lot like Hunt Midwest, if you've ever seen those caves up there. And as far as we know, we're the only distillery, we think in the world, but for sure in the United States, located in a cave. So this is actually the front of the distillery. You can kind of see what we've got going on here. This is one of the pillars of the cave. It's pillar 136, so we'd love to have you guys all come up and visit us sometime. We're not currently offering tours, but we will be towards the end of the year. We just last week really finished our space that we're going to be using for whether it's like cocktail parties, our tasting room, things like that. And so it's brand new. Like I said, we're still going to be adding more things in here, but this is kind of what it looks like. And so the things that we're doing, the very first product that we released was SD Strong Vodka. And it is, we sold our very first bottle March 29th of last year. So we've been doing it just a little bit over a year. And things have been going great with that. We do have another product, gin, that's going to be coming out just right around the beginning of fourth quarter is what I'm hoping. There's some label approval stuff that we've got to get through. And then I'm also barrel aging a rye whiskey right now that should be out, I'm hoping middle of next year. It just has to sit in a barrel, unfortunately. So I thought what I would do is just tell you a little bit about the journey that I've had starting this distillery. So I love music, and I was in the music industry for 17 years, more in a sales capacity, selling guitars. And so I played guitar, and I was playing in this rockabilly band, and one of the guys in the band was making moonshine in his garage with his cousin. And I thought, who does that? I thought you had to live in Kentucky or in the hills of Tennessee, and these guys had all their teeth and everything. So but anyway, I got interested in it, and I started messing with different mash recipes, and the stuff was pretty good. And I thought, well, maybe I could do this and really make a go of it. I looked into what it would take to do it, and the paperwork it was unbelievable. I have a stack of paperwork that's this high, and this is something that not very many people know about starting distilleries. You actually have to build the distillery first, So you put all your money in, and then you go to the federal government and you ask if you can have a license to distill. I thought that was insane. I was like, who would do anything like that? So that's what I did. So this is a picture of my still. It's a 200-gallon still. I designed it with a guy in Maine, an artist, or a craftsman in Maine, and it's a packed column, so it's a really efficient still. There's thousands of distillations that happen up that column. It's like packed with copper. And so, we've certainly had lots of challenges along the way. I thought I'd talk a little bit about that. The very first challenge, I got label approval for the very first label that we had. And in the same mailbox, I got a letter from another attorney saying that we couldn't use that label, they were going to sue us. So that was, kind of a setback. It set us back about 6 months, which was kind of unfortunate. Just learning how to do the whole distilling process was a whole nother thing on a larger scale. I've burnt out pumps. The cave actually offers some unique challenges in of itself. There's no sewer system that runs underneath the cave, so you actually have to pump whatever you're pumping out into a pit, then it pumps up into the ceiling and then out to the sewer system. The other challenge that we've really had is getting people just to remember, once they try us, just remembering who we are and coming back. I think people get so ingrained in that this is their product that they do. So they'll try it, they'll buy a bottle, they tell me they love it, and then just remembering to go back to the local product, that kind of a thing. We've certainly had lots of help along the way too, whether it was the design of our label. We've had a lot of help with social media, even just people that volunteer to bottle. That's very crucial, actually. I guess the thing that I've really we wanted to start out in Parkville and basically spread out, and that's really the way that it started. We're pretty much any place that you can buy or sell vodka in Parkville, we're in there. We are currently in about 170 different locations around town and in Columbia. We're distributed in Missouri and in the state of Kansas. Things have really actually gone much quicker than I had anticipated and that I thought that they would go, which is great. So I would say that the biggest thing that I've learned doing this entire process is that it's really made me reevaluate the purchasing decisions that I make and the way that I buy things. Every little thing really makes a big difference. We do this one bottle at a time. And so we all have a choice. And I just hope that you guys would choose SD Strong.
Great, thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, we've got Courtney's in the back and Milton's on the side, so raise your hand if you have a question. And
Brian?
Yes, sir.
One thing that I did want to say, I don't know if everybody, we're going to be doing the Boulevardia on Sunday. They invited us out we're going to have a booth there. And we got some tickets from them. So I don't know if when you were coming in, if you got a raffle ticket, but we're going to give a pair of tickets away here today, kind of at the end of this deal. So sorry about that.
So we're handing out some tickets. Who's got the tickets right now? You guys are handing them out? Okay, great. I've got a question for you. So in distilling, as you're manufacturing, you've got not only you've got the waste coming out of the bottom of the still that you have to get rid of,
yeah,
right?
Yeah.
And you've got some fumes or something that you have to deal with coming out of the top?
Not so much fumes when we're distilling. There would be more of the challenges when we're actually doing fermentations. You have CO2 coming out. So we have a fan system that actually pulls all of that out of our space. And, the cave is pretty big, so it will, it disperses out. So it's not anything that's
So you don't pump it into your neighbor's cave?
No.
All right.
It just there's fans that
You'd
blow
have
it
to
out.
check on them every once in a
Yeah.
while.
But the stillage, when we're done with that, I put it in a tote, and we've got a farmer that takes all the stuff away and feeds his livestock with it.
Feeds the cows.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Okay, we got a question here in the center.
So how are you differentiating yourself from any other vodka that's out there? Is it taste? Is it price point? Is it gluten-free? Why should we buy SD Strong?
It is gluten-free. I didn't put it on the label. The problem with doing that is that it's a really long process to go through to get it, and I just haven't been able to do that yet. It definitely is as smooth as you'll find. When we first started, we actually did a kind of a blind taste test, and we had about 50 people up in the cave, and we did a blind taste test against Tito's, Grey Goose, Kettle One, and ourselves, and in a complete blind taste test, people picked us 6-1 over all those other ones, and I tried to pick different price points. The price point of this vodka is about $19.99, so it's still a pretty affordable price point. I just went for the smoothest, vodka that I could possibly go for. It's great sipping it straight, or in martinis, or my wife's favorite drink is a vodka soda with about 3 limes, and she was like, "If you don't get that right, forget about it."
I have a question here on your left.
Hi, I was curious, what is your sales and distribution strategy? Are you going direct to bars or liquor stores? And plans for expansion, or are you just focused on the KC market?
Like I said, we wanted to start in Parkville, and we are selling direct. We do self-distribution in the state of Missouri. We have a distributor on the state of Kansas, or in the state of Kansas. We're much more well established in the state of Missouri just because we've been doing it a lot longer. But we definitely, Kansas City is really what we're focusing on right now. I mean, where we're putting most of our efforts. If it goes, somewhere from here, that would be fantastic. State of Missouri, state of Kansas. We can sell in both those states. We do have some plans for the state of Illinois and Texas. We just haven't quite gotten there yet.
I've got a question for you. I know you helped sponsor and present at one of the Bartender Guild's meetings recently. Yeah. Tell me about what that group is doing for a company like yours in terms of helping learn about your product and use the product. What's the result of doing that? Well,
that group is great.
Would you describe that event a little bit for us?
Basically, what it is, it's a chapter of the United States Bartenders Guild that's here in Kansas City, and it's pretty much any of the places that you guys, not any place, but places like Extra Virgin, Rye, all the different bartenders that are around town, mixologists. They have an organization, and I basically went and spoke at it, and it was a really great event. A lot of those people, after I did that, started using our vodka, whether it was on their drink menu or just doing specialty drinks. It was a great event. It's a really great organization as well, and it's not just bartenders that belong to it. I think Brian, you're a member?
I'm a proud member.
Proud member, yeah. Right. Sorry.
Got another question here on your left.
Yeah, I have a couple of questions, actually. One, how many people does it take to run your operation? How much do you make at one time? And how long does it take to make that batch?
Okay, so we have really 3 people that are working for the distillery right now, and lots of volunteers. We have 1 part-time person, myself, and then my wife also does a lot of stuff, a ton of stuff actually. And what was the second question? How much do? Well, the still is a 200-gallon still, so I can load the still with 200 gallons worth of product. But what you have to do first is you do stripping runs, and you end up with about 25 gallons worth of product. I'll do about 3 stripping runs, and then I cut that all back with water again and load that back into the still. And so if I start out with like a 200-gallon load in the still, I'll get, somewhere around like 35 to 40 gallons of 190 proof spirits. If I'm doing vodka, if you're doing whiskey, you get a little bit more because you only are running it to 160 proof. And so then with that, then you cut it all back with reverse osmosis water, the cleanest water they can possibly get. That was another challenge that I know more about RO water than I ever thought I would in my entire life. So then, I'll end up with, about 120 gallons when I finally do it. And it takes, 3 weeks to get that much product.
Got another question for you here.
Can you talk about how you financed your startup?
Yeah. Well, it's all self-financed so far. I like to joke that, I had a German car that I sold to pay for the still, and then, just savings, Really, that's really what we've done. I'm not really, looking to do anything at this point right now.
Got another question for you here.
This is just a quick branding question.
Yeah.
You called it Strongman Vodka, but the label's
SD Strong.
SD
Yeah.
Strong. Well, maybe I misunderstood, but your logo or the man is the old-fashioned Strongman.
Right.
And then you have SD Strong, and you said you wanted it to be memorable. Why don't you simply call it Strongman Vodka? It doesn't have to be.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah. Just a quick story about the guy. We knew that we were going to be in the cave when we started this whole thing, and it had kind of this kind of bootlegger vibe, and so we kind of wanted to go with sort of a vintage vibe. And the artist that actually drew the guy, her great uncle was a guy named Charles Copeland, who was a famous. They called them men's, I think like sports magazines, and they were kind of a racy type of thing. And he has. She showed me all the pictures that she took it from, and kind of a culmination from like 6 different pieces of art that he did. And that's kind of where the guy came from. So that's, we knew right away we wanted some sort of symbol. And the SD Strong it was just my name. So that's where, it was originally just going to be Strong Vodka. And then we had some issues with that. So.
I've got another question for you back here in the middle.
So when I think of trendy local alcohols that kind of blew up, and by local I mean the Midwest, the first one that comes to mind is Templeton Rye and how they couldn't keep it on the shelves. I'm curious if you ever thought about sitting down with someone like that as a mentor, or if you see them as competition and wouldn't want to sit down with someone like that.
Oh, I would love to sit down with them. I just haven't really run into them. The thing about this whole distilling community, and I think the brewing community is probably pretty similar, is that everybody is really pretty open. When I first started, I went around and I visited, probably 20 different distilleries mostly around the Midwest. There were a couple other ones that were around. And everybody was really great about sharing information. Not everybody wants to share like recipe kind of stuff and, maybe mash bills, because that's a proprietary thing. But processes, or marketing strategies, it does definitely have, the whole craft distilling thing has really, it's about where the craft brewing thing was about 20 years ago, and there's people are really willing to share. So I would love to sit down with them, and I hope we have the same problem that they have, that we can't keep it on the shelves.
Got another question here in the middle.
From a marketing perspective, are you allowed to go to a place like Outlaw Cigar Company and let people sample it there? Would you?
The answer is, well, yes and no. It just depends. They have to have, the proper permits, which would be, I think it's alcohol by the drink, and then we could do any sampling there. The one thing that some places will do is they'll just buy a bottle, at a liquor store, and then they can actually just give it away for free. So I mean, that would just be like going to someone's house, I guess. You know, so that's one thing that some people will do. They just wouldn't be able to sell any bottles or anything like that.
Got a question here in the front.
Good morning.
Morning.
So the story you told about the taste test, that you blew out the competition, that should be everywhere in your marketing. That's really good. And it wasn't in any of your slides. It's not on your label. I just noticed those things. But tell me about profit. Are you pre-profit? Are you making profit? What are your sales volume?
We are doing about 400 cases a year is what we did in our first year. You know, we're hoping to more than double that this year. You know, we're not even close to, you know, paying ourselves back. Yeah, right. Yeah, pre-profit. Okay. Sorry, I didn't know that technical term.
Is there such thing as a non-profit distillery?
Not that I'm aware of, but let me know.
I've got another question here for you.
Number one, fantastic. Number two, I am a huge Dark Horse fan. I drink Dark Horse like it's water. It's probably not a good thing to advertise, but anyways. Are you thinking about doing any kind of specifically Kansas City brand work on that? Because I mean, SD Strong is cool, I love the guy and everything, but I think playing on the whole Kansas City thing, if you're focused on Kansas City. You know?
Yeah, no, we definitely are. We're actually involved with Local Start, and on every single bottle that goes out, you know, we've got their label. It says Made in Kansas City. So, you know, we're definitely trying to, you know, I mean, we're all about, you know, Kansas City, and I think Dark Horse is great too. What they're doing. I mean, you know, we're two different kind of things, but I mean, you know, obviously making the same types of products. But
Another question for you here on the left.
Hello.
Hi.
What is your plan and somewhat of your approach to scalability? Because sometimes you hear about startups that are going gangbusters and they go broke because they can't scale. They don't have the resources to keep up with their orders and their business. So I was curious kind of what your approach is, what your style is looking forward to scale up.
Well, that's a good question. You know, we did start it small and started it, and it was really good because I needed, you know, more time to ramp up to just where we are at. You know, I don't see this thing going nationwide. I mean, I don't think that we have the facility where we're at in the cave to possibly do anything like that. But I certainly think that we could do, you know, a regional type of thing, anywhere from 5 to 7 states, something like that. And we could keep up with capacity. I do have, you know, like when we introduce the whiskey, there's just not going to be that much of it. I've focused a lot of my time on the vodka, just because I can make it a lot faster and sell it a lot faster. And since we did finance the whole thing, you know, we needed to have stuff that we could bring in right away. But we still have you know, we have a lot of room for growth.
I've got a quick question for you. You mentioned that before you can get a license to distill, you actually have to have the still, which is
Whole distillery built.
the
Yeah.
whole distillery built, which has got to be an expense, you know, the most expensive startup. Have you ever seen people not get the license and then they maybe have equipment for sale?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it doesn't happen a whole lot. The federal government's actually they want you to have the license because then they're going to get paid their excise tax. But typically, where I've seen it happen, and I don't know, maybe a dozen times that I've heard about it happening, that, you know, people build the whole thing and then they have problems either with the local city government or maybe the county, you know, not doing the proper permits that they would need to do, and so, you know, then occasionally you'll see stills that are up for sale.
Oh, question up front.
Yeah, going along with that, what are the top 3 expenses you have in this?
Well, I mean, you know, certainly equipment was the major expense that we had. Are you specifically saying like within the equipment? What was the? Yeah. To produce the product. Yeah. The still was by far the most expensive thing, and then you've got, you know, I've got fermentation tanks. I've got a mash tun, which is where everything kind of starts. That's really where I got most of my money. And then, you know, just the daily cash flow thing, I mean, that really eats up a lot of stuff as well. I mean, anybody that's started a business knows that that's always an issue.
Question on your right.
Can you tweak that that still that you've submitted for certification, once it's been submitted, can you modify it, or does it have to stay that way?
Oh yeah, no. You're constantly updating it with the TTB. Anytime that you add, if I would add another still, I could just, it's online, so I could just add an amendment to my agreement and just say that I have another still, or if I have other tanks, they do get pretty picky about it. I mean, they want to know the layout exactly of where we're at. So yeah, you can always amend it.
You got a question?
How do I become a volunteer? And what do the volunteers get for helping?
It is funny. I do get a lot of volunteers for taste testing. So, go figure, right? If you just go to our website, you can email us. That would be fantastic. If you have any interest in doing, bottling, that's really where we need most of the help. That's our biggest bottleneck.
That's where the word came from.
Right, yeah.
Before we let you go, great presentation, by the way. What can you've got 250, 300 people here. What can we as a community do for SD Strong and help you?
Well, the biggest help that I need is just if you're at a restaurant or at a liquor store, to just ask for it by name, whether it's the vodka or the gin that we're going to be having out. And if your local liquor store doesn't carry it, ask them to bring it in. That would be extremely helpful for us.
Great. Well, thank you so much.
Do you want to do the drawing?
What's that?
Are we going to do the drawing now? Or
you do it?
You want to do the drawing?
Yeah, we could do the drawing. We got time. You ready?
Yeah, I don't know where the tickets are at, though.
Somebody randomly show us your ticket. No, I'm kidding.
Do we have the raffle tickets back there?
All right, bring it up. Steve, while we're waiting for that, do you have like an interesting recipe that you'd like to share with us? Something unique, something new that's easy?
As far as a drink recipe?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I actually have this recipe up on our website. It's just called a lemon snap. We've done it at a couple of different things. I'm thinking I'll probably do it again. Oh, I can't do it at Boulevardy. They're only letting us do. But basically, it is a simple syrup infused with ginger. You basically just boil, a 1-to-1 sugar to water ratio with ginger just let it simmer for about an hour. So you got one part of that, one part of our SD Strong vodka, one part of lemon juice, and then just a shot of soda. It's fantastic. All right, you want to draw? You go. Okay. All right, so this is for 2 tickets to the Boulevardia. It's a general admission ticket that would go any day of the festival. I hope you come on Sunday and come and visit us. So, all right, the number is, okay, Moira Collins, M-O-I-R-A, Collins? Yeah. Oh, awesome.
All right, great. Thank you. And you're not supposed to have special things up here, so I'm going to have to take that.
Oh, sorry.
All right, Melissa, you're up.
Okay, so thanks everyone for coming again. Have a couple announcements for you in the middle today. First off, we are halfway through 1 week KC. Yay! How many people have been to a 1 week KC event so far? I know Enton was on my team at Startup Games, Team Panda. We lost, but we won in our hearts. So there's a couple other things you should check out as a part of 1 week KC. There's events tonight, tomorrow, Friday, and especially Startup Weekend starting this Friday. Make sure you register online if you haven't already. It's going to be awesome. It always is. And if you haven't been through a Startup Intensive, this is a great way to kind of try it once. It's going to be at the Blue Valley CAPS facility. Yeah? Okay, cool. Awesome. And then a couple of more upcoming events: Athena League, Startup Grind, Inventors Club, crowdfunding KC. There's always a ton going on. If you haven't applied for eScholars at UMKC, make sure you take a look at the information on your seat. It's a really incredible program that's graduated 200 Kansas City companies and provided them with mentors, money, all sorts of fun stuff. Also, think about applying for Code for America if you're a developer. It's a new kind of, if you've ever heard of Teach for America, this is like Teach for America, but for developers. So they work on civic projects, big data, and all sorts of interesting stuff. They built something really cool last time they were here in Kansas City, and they really need people to apply for the 2015 fellowship. And then finally, how many people here know a teacher? Like everybody? Okay. Like how many of you have had a teacher? Ever? Like, okay, there should be more hands up, but whatever. So next week we're doing a very special education edition of 1 Million Cups. Educators can be innovators, innovators can be educators. There's really no line between the two. We want to help teachers think entrepreneurially and kind of get all the great benefits that you guys get every week at 1 Million Cups. So invite a teacher, tell them to come next week at 9 a.m., and we'll be doing some really interesting presentations and some extra special stuff for them. So without further ado, we have our second presenter, P2Binvestor, here all the way from Denver as part of our 1 Million Cups Passport program. So she's an old pro, she's already presented once, and we're really happy to welcome her to Kansas City.
Good morning, everyone. It's my first time in Kansas City, so it's very nice, much different than I expected. My name is Krista Morgan, excuse me, and I'm the co-founder and chief operating officer of P2Binvestor. We're a financial technology company. We are crowdfunding working capital loans for growing businesses secured by their receivables. We're disrupting, I hope, a $114 billion market through a combination of crowdfunding and technology. But before I get into it, let me just tell you briefly how this Canadian, who comes from a marketing background, founded a finance company with my dad. 3 years ago, I was living in London, and I was working at a big agency, big accounts, and then I talked to my dad, and he was working on a solar company. And we started talking about how hard it is for businesses to raise capital, and then next thing you know, we come up with this idea of crowdfunding business receivables. Don't ask me exactly how it happened. It was, I think, just one of those serendipitous entrepreneurial events. And then within 2 days, we had our first business plan. Within 3 months, I quit my job, moved to Denver, and started the very long process of turning what I thought was a compelling PowerPoint into a real business. So what are we doing? We're trying to solve what we see as a big problem, which is that the business lending industry, it needs a shakeup, right? Every business, as they are growing, faces cash flow issues. And we just don't think that lenders get it. We think you should be able to have a lender that grows with you as you grow, that can evolve with your business as it changes. You might need $200,000 today, but if all goes to plan, in 6 months, you might need $500,000. And you want to make sure that your lender can keep up with you. When I look at the business lending market, I see it as being quite polarized. On the one hand, you have banks who, quite frankly, are not lending when you really need it. And then you have these expensive alternative finance companies who know that you can't get bank funding. And I think they take advantage, not just with higher rates, but with contractual constraints that can really hurt a growing business. So this is what we're trying to solve. We're making business loans that are secured by receivables or some kind of contractual revenue. So we talk a lot about it's our new SaaS funding model. And we're helping businesses unlock the cash that is tied up in their balance sheet at more affordable rates and with way fewer contractual constraints. One of our key differentiators is actually our rate guarantee. So we decided that if you get a better rate from someone else and you're under contract with us, that you should be allowed to take it. So we ask you to give us 3 business days to match your rate, and then we let you out of the contract. We're working with companies who are offering payment terms to their customers. Could be 30, 60, 90-day payments, could be you spread the payments out over the course of a year. But companies that do this, they have a funding gap, right? Today, they need to make payroll. Today, they need to fill new orders, but they have kindly given their customers 90 days to pay. And so this is where we come in, and we can help bridge this financing gap. The way it works is we underwrite loans. We find companies, we underwrite them, we get them funded with our own line of credit, and then they go out on our web platform. And then this crowd of accredited investors comes on, looks at the companies, and makes investments into different deals in exchange for a monthly return. This is debt-based crowdfunding. We're taking that model pioneered by Kickstarter, but instead of giving our crowd a reward, we're giving them a return. It's a new funding model that allows us to bridge this large gap between hard-to-get bank funding and then expensive alternative financing options. What's interesting is that technology allows us to lower the cost of our operations, and crowdfunding allows us to lower our effective cost of capital. So 6 weeks ago, I would not have had this slide. We have been in market since January, and let me be honest with you that on April 30th, I was sitting and thinking, how much longer can I run a business that isn't actually doing business? The answer was not very long. But in the last 6 weeks, something clicked, and boom, traction, this mythical traction that all my investors want me to have. And so we funded $2.25 million of deals and bought almost $1.5 million in invoices. So we're on one of those entrepreneurial roller coaster highs, which is awesome, actually. And so that's it. We are making working capital loans to growing businesses, and all our loans are funded by a crowd of accredited investors. We have tons of capital and not nearly enough businesses. And so we would love people to help us spread the word about what we're doing. Thank you.
Thank you.
What do you think it was that clicked recently that just kind of catapulted the business?
I wish I knew the answer to that question, but I think it was just time. I think as a company, you just need some time in market for people to get to know you, start to trust you, hear from you 3 months in a row, and then messaging. I think we spent a lot of time trying to find the right messaging in our market niche.
Question here, right?
What are your costs to the company that has the receivables, and then what sort of return do you pay to your investors?
So typically the loans run anything from 1 to 2% a month, with our average probably running at less than 1.5% to the borrowers. And then to the crowd, it's been about 8 to 11% APR. So it's less than a factor? It should be, yes. People keep switching over to us. They tell me we're much cheaper.
Got a question here on your left.
So are you making the loans off your balance sheet, or are you playing matchmaker with the accredited investors directly to the businesses?
We're doing both. So we realized that it can take some time to get the accredited investors. So we actually have a hedge fund out of the UK that has gave us $1 million credit line that we use to fund receivables immediately when people need the money. And then we've got, it can take a couple of weeks to get the accredited investors in the deals.
Got a question to your right.
Welcome to Kansas City.
Thank you.
I think previously I asked, so you have a double-sided market problem. You have accredited investors, and then you have companies. And I asked if you had to choose your favorite child, which one is it? And you weren't able to answer that question last time. Can you answer it now?
Oh dear, they're following me all the way from Denver. Can I answer? Honestly, my favorite child are the businesses that we're helping. Having had a chance to work with companies that need funding and giving them a solution is just an amazing feeling. It really is. So, and I like the accredited investors too. Don't tell them I said they weren't my favorite.
Got
And
another
are
question
you
to your right.
outsourcing your underwriting, or do you do that internally?
Oh no, all my underwriting is done in-house. I'm an expert underwriter / marketer now.
Okay, we got a question to your right.
So you're trying to help those that need investment that they wouldn't normally get from banks, right? That's the key focus.
what are you doing to make sure those accredited investors are helping those folks that weren't getting help at banks? What kind of changes the formula that would say that they want to invest in those same ones that weren't getting bank investment?
The thing is that a company that isn't getting bank financing is not a bad company by any stretch, right? Banks have very low risk tolerances, largely because of government regulation that says they really are not allowed to lose money. So I don't think it's a question of, you know, giving an investor a bad loan. I mean, at the end of the day, we do a lot of underwriting. We turn down a lot of companies, but we find the good ones who we believe will pay the money back, and then we match it to accredited investors. Now, obviously, they're getting a premium. If they were investing in a bank, they'd be getting a quarter point, maybe, and with us, they're getting 8 to 11%. So there is, of course, risk premium in the return they're getting.
Question in the back right.
Yes.
Being in Denver, factoring seems like a perfect application for the dispensaries and the lighting companies that are providing the lights for them. Usually banks don't like to touch them. I mean, is that a market that you guys have gotten into?
That is something we have had many conversations about in our office. We are actually talking to a company that's supplying some kind of heating lamp technology. So yes, we are not ready. I mean, I'm already in enough potential hot water with the SEC for being a crowdfunding company, so I might not go to the growers, but to equipment providers of the industry, yes, we would talk to them.
Another question here on your left. Over here in the corner.
Oh, sorry.
Hello. You said you had to put out $1.4 million with 376 invoices, is that right?
Yes.
So that's about $3,700 per invoice. So I'm assuming that's not per client.
No, so, and actually it's a bit skewed because one of our clients is a staffing company and every time card is an invoice. So I'm doing like 150 invoices for them at like 2,000. And then I've got other clients, like I have one client who's just done one invoice for 100,000. So it really varies.
Okay, great.
Question here right.
Second question. You said that you mentioned the gray area around crowdfunding and the SEC right now and the regulations. How do you vet your accredited investors? Because I know that's a big part of the regulations, and that's a question everybody has now.
Yeah, so there are companies that will do the vetting for you, and we're talking to them, but right now we're not open. So if you go on our website, you can't actually register to be an investor. We have a wait list, and everyone that is on there in our database is someone we've met through the fundraising process. So we did a seed and a Series A, so we just met all these investors that wanted to sign up for both.
Another question here on your left.
Do you have a cap on the size of companies that you work with to provide loans, or do you accept any company as big as they might be if they can get the crowdfunding?
The answer is yes, there is no cap. I mean, when you're talking, huge, $50 million receivables facilities, we're at that point competing with banks who are going to have a lower cost of capital than we do, so we may not be as competitive. But no, and one of the things that we found is our deal size is larger than we anticipated. So we think our niche is really in the companies that need kind of $250 to like $2 million loans, because they are not being well serviced by the banks, and we can give them very good rates on that.
Krista, I've got a question here to your right.
Just a quick clarification for my question. Sorry if I missed this, but when you're saying accredited, the same rules that would apply to any other investment house per the SEC apply to you guys as far as accredited?
Yeah, so we're operating under 506 Reg D right now. So we're like a private investment club where people can come in, they choose which loans they want to buy into and make their own choice. In the same way that if you were taking equity investment, you would talk to an individual accredited investor and they would choose whether to invest in your company.
Okay, and then so I wonder if you would talk about what you see as the future of those laws. I've read a little bit about those laws being loosened around crowdfunding, so I just wonder if you talk about where you see that going and how you see that affecting what you're doing.
Well, I might be an underwriter and a marketer, but I'm really not a lawyer. But I can tell you that they are trying to open them up. I think that it's still gonna be a while before we see the crowdfunding laws do what everyone hoped they would do, which is really democratize equity investing. I just think the legislators are not ready to do that yet. I do think over the next couple of years, like I heard there's an amendment coming into the Jobs Act to try to loosen things up, but it's all, I think there's still they still have quite a bit of work to do. I think it'll be a while. Our intention is to file an S1. So as we go out and to do a Series B and grow, we would like to open to the general public our investing, and we would do it by spending $1 million on legal fees and filing an S1. So.
Question on your right.
What's the advance rate on your receivables?
Really depends, typically 80 to 90. So far, most of our deals have been like 85% advance
You advance
rate.
85% on receivables? Okay.
Yes,
And then does the investors, do they buy a block of receivables and then they're out of the investment? So their timeline for an investment might only be 90 days or 120 days?
It's actually a great question. It's one of the things that differentiates us. So there have been other platforms that have sold individual invoices, but we are signing a contract. So it's like a 1-year line of credit that you have the right to keep selling us receivables and we can keep buying them. And so for our investors, if we know that you will typically be funding $200,000 a month, I will just borrow $200,000 from them, pay them the interest on it, and that money is sitting there allocated to your company. So no, they tend to stay in a deal for the life of it. They don't necessarily know what invoice they own. They own a proportional share of every invoice that is currently being funded in the deal.
So when you take on capital, over here to your left, when you take on capital from your investors in order to make a loan, you're mitigating the risk by splitting it up, essentially.
That is exactly right. That's what makes our model. We think, most alternative lenders are lending their own money or they've borrowed private money that if they lose it, they are on the hook for it. And so you have to price that risk premium into your into your deals. And we don't have to do the same thing because we've diversified the risk.
Another question here in the middle.
Hi, yeah, so the group I work with, we don't exactly have $200,000 in receivables yet. Are there any solutions similar to yours out there for smaller organizations?
We're doing loans as small. We've looked at a loan sort of in the $30,000 to $50,000 range. So it's not that we won't do anything smaller. It just depends on what your growth prospects are. There are companies like other factoring companies that will do those smaller loans, but it just tends to be, it's quite expensive, right? It costs the same to underwrite a smaller deal as it does a big one. So you end up getting an additional cost as you go in. But the thing I would caution people against when they're getting those small loans is that you can really get tied up, right? So they can put a lien on your receivables when they're at $30,000, and then when your receivables are at $150,000 or $200,000, you're still being tied into that first lien. So I really caution entrepreneurs to think about their lending, think about it when they're going out to get a loan.
Another question here in the middle.
Have you thought about funding any startups?
I have. In our original business plan, we were going to be an equity funding company because I love startups and I would love to be able to do that. I think it'll probably end up being some kind of an offshoot as we go. And one of the things that we tell people is we are connecting them to accredited investors, and we do market the companies on our platform to them. So it's not out of the realm of possibility that an accredited investor who's been funding your debt for some period of time may decide that you're doing an equity round and they'd like to be a part of it. But yeah, early stage startups, we're not quite there yet. There is, though, Fundable has just come out, I think, and is doing those, and Circle Up.
Krista, I've got a question to your right. How do you handle your non-collectibles?
Well, so far I haven't had any, but it's only been 6 weeks. So I am in the process of talking to some agencies that you can, like collection agencies that we can talk to. But to be honest, we're not, the loans are managed quite carefully, and we're hoping, the default rate in the industry is not actually that high. You get instances of fraud where there's a big loss, but day to day, most invoices collect, or you can charge them back to the clients if there's some issue with them. So yes, I don't have a great answer for that yet. So.
Is there any industry that you don't want to do loans in?
We're not doing a lot of transportation loans. because it's very specialized trucking, factoring, and we're not doing a ton of construction, but we do have one deal. So otherwise, we're very open, and it's actually our intention to be funding a ton of industries because our investors are looking for diversification. And I will say that we just announced that we signed a deal with Bhakti Chai, which is a natural foods company out of Boulder that we're really excited about because we love natural foods.
Krista, could you tell us about kind of your perfect client and what size they are and how much are they borrowing and how often are they borrowing?
Sure. So our perfect client we're discovering is probably a company that is doing between $3 and $7 million in annual revenue that has receivables anything from $200,000 to $600,000 a month, and is doing pretty consistent volume. I mean, that's our perfect customer, but we're discovering that I think my definition of perfect is gonna grow the more we do.
Question in the center.
Great presentation.
Thank
and
you.
I'm from New York and Denver and Boulder and Casey. What is the average, how long has the average company been in business that you've worked with so far?
So far, it really depends. I would say it's kind of 3 to 5 years on average, but then we have, that's about where they are, because they're kind of hitting that, they're in that high growth phase. Really, the companies we're looking for growing so quickly, they've found that traction that I finally just discovered, and they're trying to fill new orders, and they just need more cash flow to be able to improve their margins and deliver faster.
I have a question to your right.
Yes, I represent a huge, innovative economic empowerment opportunity in the Midwest, and two things that I lack, and that is partnership and an ingenious marketing panel to assist me in bringing a great opportunity to the Midwest. So how do I get on the fast track to incorporating the marketing minds, ingenious marketing minds that are essential to the growth of any company or concept, as well as the partnership as well?
So was the question, how do you find good marketing people, genius marketing people to get your company
Right, because it
off the ground?
will require a marketing campaign to the various demographics within our community.
I gotcha. Well, sadly, I'm not positive where all these genius marketing people are. I think most of them became underwriters, actually, was their problem. I don't have a good answer for you. I'm not positive. I have just found one great marketing person that I just found by accident because I play roller derby, and she plays roller derby with me, and I recruited her. I encourage everyone to recruit from roller derby teams, actually.
Do you find that you have a lot of competition in the crowdfunding space for investments right now?
No. There is tons and tons of capital to lend right now that's looking for yield. They're just we put out our press release saying our Series A was done, and I had 15 hedge funds phone me and ask when they could give us $10 million to put on our site. The answer was not. They couldn't yet. So I really think that there's so much room in this alternative online space for capital that's not a concern.
You mentioned a hedge fund out of Canada. Do you have a lot of hedge funds also within the U.S.?
Yes, and we have one out of the UK.
Krista, are most of your clients in Colorado, or is it geographic for you?
All over. We've got a client in New York, North Carolina, a couple in Colorado, but none from Kansas City, so this is why I'm here today. We'd really like to add to our portfolio.
Krista, is there anything that we're forgetting to ask you that you couldn't get into your presentation? I know we kind of talk about that before you come up here, but
I don't think so.
Okay,
I think we've covered a whole bunch of things.
we've covered it. Any more questions for Krista? Yes. Okay. 1 second.
So we're actually just funding our first UK receivables. We weren't planning to, but the best laid plans, apparently. So yes, we are working with we're working with U.S. companies, but if they're doing business internationally, we can fund their receivables.
Got a question here in the center.
You got to tell us what your roller derby name is.
That's secret, I think. No, it's Credible Threat. So there you go.
Credible.
I'll be bouting in South Dakota soon, so I'll send y'all a link.
Krista, I know you've done, this is your second 1 million cups,
Yes.
right? You've got another one coming up?
In Boulder, yes, they've asked us to come over to Boulder.
Excellent. Okay, and do you see any other cities in your area that you're hoping to get to?
I'm thinking maybe I'm gonna try to be the first person to do all the 1 million cups. I figure the challenge is being put out right here, so we'll see how that goes.
You're gonna have to get a bus.
Got a question for you over here on your left.
Yeah, just real quick. You said Kansas City was not what you expected. Can you tell us what is surprising to you?
Well, so first of all, I believe I mentioned I was Canadian, so you're gonna have to forgive me for this. When I was in the taxi heading to the airport yesterday in Denver, my taxi driver said, "Are you going to Kansas or Missouri?" And I had no idea. And also was really hopeful that I was not going to the wrong state and did not know that everything was right next to each other. So that surprised me. So very happy to be in Missouri and not Kansas, apparently. And I don't know, I was driving in and I looked at the skyline of the city and I was just really impressed. It was just beautiful. So I hope to come back. Thank you.
Is there one more?
I've got a question for you here in the back.
Office in Kansas City, I think that's the right plan.
I know you're only hedge funds can invest, or can individuals invest money, and what's the minimum?
So, well, we don't have any minimums, but you have to be an accredited investor. So there's an SEC definition. So we have individuals and funds. Our typical investment size, most individuals put in sort of $10,000 to $25,000 at a time when they're investing.
Got another question for you here in the back.
Krista, I have two questions. Number one, where in Canada are you from? Because I'm Canadian too.
Oh, Montreal.
Montreal, okay. Number two, why just B2B?
The reason is that it's very hard to perfect the lien on a consumer receivable. Like, trying to collect from consumers is much more difficult. And so we really only want to buy business receivables at this time. So like, you get into consumer medical receivables and stuff, it's just, again, very specialized, not our area of expertise. So that's why we started that way.
Krista, thank you so much. Before we wrap it up, you've got 250, 300 people here plus the live stream. What can we do for you as a community?
Just spread the word about what we're doing. We're really trying to help businesses, and I have very small marketing budget, so if you can just tell your friends about what we're doing and help us get tons of companies funded, that would be awesome.
Thank you so much for coming in. Thank you, Krista. So before we let you go, please take a look at those announcement sheets. There's a lot of fun events happening with 1 Week KC, and we'll be back next week, next Wednesday at 9 a.m., once again with some great startups or companies to share their story with you. Thank you for coming out.